Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. Today's Do You Know question is, do you know the various modes in which Christ is present in our Eucharistic celebration? It's important to remember that when we Christians gather, we truly believe that Christ is fully present. We know from Matthew's Gospel that Christ said, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. We also know from the Last Supper, when Jesus gathered his own disciples, that he commissioned them to gather once more in his name, to remember him, to tell stories about him, and to share a meal together, and to do all this in memory of me. And therefore, it's important to remember that our focus has been, certainly from the early church on, our focus has been on Christ truly present in our Eucharistic celebration. Pre-Vatican II focus for the presence of Christ in Eucharistic celebration was almost exclusively directed towards the elements themselves, bread and wine, and the tabernacle. Nothing wrong with this, but within our Vatican II vision of understanding of church and liturgy, our understanding of Christ's presence at the Eucharistic celebration was broadened and enhanced, and they explored many and various ways in which Christ was present in our Eucharistic celebration. This is best articulated in the Vatican II document on the liturgy, the Constitution on Divine Liturgy, called, in Latin, Sacrosanctum Concilium. I would like to read number 7 of that document, in which articulates the various ways in which Christ is present. So this is number 7 of Sacrosanctum Concilium, and it says, to accomplish so great a work, Christ is always present in his church, especially in liturgical celebrations. He is present in the sacrifice of the Mass, both in the person of his minister, the same now offering through the ministry of priest who formerly offered himself on the cross, and most of all in the Eucharistic species. By his power he is present in the sacraments, so that when anybody baptizes, it is really Christ himself who baptizes. He is present in his word, since it is he himself who speaks when the Holy Scriptures are read in church. And lastly, he is present when the church prays and sings, for he has promised that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. So, as we can see, Vatican II is very rich in expanding our understanding of Christ present in our Eucharistic celebration. And they articulated 4 ways in which Christ was present. Christ is first and foremost present in the assembly. The assembly is the people gathered. Christ is then present in the actual species themselves, the bread and the wine, the elements. Christ is present in the Word, as we reflect and proclaim the Scripture. And then finally, Christ is present in the ministers. Even though the document says minister, at that time there weren't very many ministries involved in church celebrations. And so with the development of Vatican II vision of church and liturgy, more ministries were added, such as the ministry of hospitality, ushers, music ministry, Eucharistic ministers, lectors, and so on. So a variety of ministers, and Christ is present in the ministers who enhance our celebration. So Christ is fully present in all these ways. Christ is not partially present in the assembly and fully present in the bread and wine. No, Christ is fully present in these 4 ways and in many other ways. If this is true, what are the implications for us as Christians when we gather together at Eucharist? Well, we do know, for example, how to reverence Christ in the presence of Christ in the elements, in the bread and wine. We usually bow, we receive reverently, we process up to receive reflectively, and so on. And so we know how to reverence Christ present in the elements. But how do we reverence Christ present in the assembly? How do we reverence those who sit in front of us, next to us, behind us? How do we reverence the assembly of those gathered when we gathered for Mass before Mass begins, or when we depart from Mass in the parking lot or in our gathering spaces and so on? Finally, how do we reflect God, the presence of Christ in His Word? How do we reverence that? In other words, do we prepare the readings ahead of time? Do we reflect on the readings? Do we do a lot of reflection of what the readings are saying to us? Do we pay attention to the homily? Do we do active listening during liturgy so as to be impacted by the words of God Himself? And finally, how do we pay attention to and reverence the ministers, the various ministers that exist in church who enhance our celebration and who really bring the presence of Christ to us in a real human-to-human contact and manner? So these are the various ways in which Christ is present, and it's important for us as we celebrate liturgical celebrations to really reflect on how we do reverence the presence of Christ in these many modes. And because of this, the celebrations will be richer for us and will enhance our own understanding of how Christ is present with us. So I hope this has helped a bit to unpack how Christ is present in the various modes during our liturgical celebrations, and I hope that you will return again once more to reflect more on the presence of Christ within us and in our liturgical celebration, thus enhancing our own spiritual lives. Thank you very much.